Little Rabbit, Only Facts Dan, Desperado, and then Section and Portraits.
Yeah, so I was desperate to take the science fiction course during my degree, and I was trying to cram that thing. Like I finished in 3 years because I was taking both summer sessions and everything like that, to the point where I actually wrote someone's essay on Dune because I just wanted to look behind the curtain on this course, and it was amazing. And I was desperate to find out what my grade was, and it was pretty good. I was a communications major who loved science fiction, so of course that was going to happen. But I wound up taking a course on the history of amusement in the 20th century in the United States, and it was fascinating because it covered topics about urban flight and the domestic situation when husbands stopped going to pubs around the start of the 20th century and moved to other things. I learned a lot in that, and I
Yeah, you
thought
could
there
have
was some
watched a
value
documentary and got the
in
same
that.
shit.
I probably could have, but I wouldn't have even known that it was there. So someone curating that for me and presenting it to me caught my attention, and I did it.
There's a lot of documentaries on Netflix.
So sure, Netflix. I'm old enough that Netflix didn't exist at that point, other than getting the DVDs in the mail. But to the point of those first year courses, I agree that if they're so necessary, that I think they should be pushed down. Because by the time grade 11 or 12 came around, I was probably ready for a good chunk of that material. And for people that know that they're going to go to university, there should be better options for advanced placement in grade 11 and 12 so that you can already have that content for you, would be my answer to that. Because I think they're important, but I think you can, if they're that important, then they should be provided ahead of time. The one major thing that I want to say to Debate Board in light of what he keeps putting forward is that, and Dewey touched on this a little bit too, teachers own their classroom, I feel, and people can debate that, but I think, an instructor has a plan, they're executing on it, and they're going to have different ideas on how much engagement they want in that material, either because of the density of the material and there just isn't time, or there just really isn't any desire on their part to hear bullshit takes from first year students. Both equally valid stances, but I think that there are other opportunities like those debate clubs, like salons that get developed, and you can debate other students. Some teachers and TAs might come in and participate as well too. The only time I really think that this tension about uncomfortableness becomes an issue is when there's just core material that if you're in a criminal studies or a law branch and you have to talk about things like, say, sexual assault, then if you can't engage with that material, I think it's up to you to vacate the class then, because it's just so integral to the education for these people going forward. It's going to be necessary to their professional lives that it just has to be presented. And at some point, that level of uncomfortableness, if it can't be mitigated in some way, you just have to bear the cost of it and exit that space because other people need to have that conversation.
Okay,
Can I jump in real quick just to address one of Rabbit's points, and that was these lower level classes. I think the number and the persistence of these remedial classes for first and second year college students is a direct reflection of the failure of K through 12. And this is not something that's just popped up over the last couple of years. I remember when I went into college, 20 years ago, I had to take a math placement test and a English placement test, and fortunately tested out of any math at all. However, I think these remedial classes are absolutely necessary because students are not getting this proper education in high school. And so until we do something about K through 12, it's unfortunate that we have to repeat this stuff in first and second year college.
I just want to agree with that really quickly because I was literally, like I said, in a communications degree focused on technical writing. And the first day of the technical writing class, we were going through what the syllabus was. And we wound up 2 to 3 weeks behind because we had to teach basic grammar and things that they should have known by the time grade 9 rolled around that were core to our course. But also, if they didn't know it, they shouldn't have even been allowed in the program.
Shout out to a debate board on that one. I actually had to take a remedial math class. Not that I couldn't do it. It's just that I hadn't been taught. So I went to a math class, the basic one, the 101 math class, and then I didn't do well. I remember sitting there, and I'm thinking like, is this just me? Did I like fuck up? Like, what's wrong with me? And I I asked a guy next to me, right, to like what is this about? I don't remember this. Like, could you help me like jog my memory as to what we're talking about? And he explains it. He just like rattles off. But you like you know all this. I'm like, oh yeah, I know all this. I couldn't do it. I had to take 2 remedial classes. I learned that stuff. I passed that stuff, and then I could take that course again. But like, it shouldn't have been the case. I like those kids learned it in high school. I didn't, unfortunately, and that sent me back. So I agree if you own that one to pay for. The only facts.
Okay. Hi, Primes. I'm a little sick, so if I'm a little rude, not filtered today, I apologize. So you feel free to stop me. But after what somebody online said, I thought I could just rest my case. I agreed with everything they had to say. But in that short time since I last heard them last speak, uh, the the dumbassery that I've heard since has just increased exponentially. And I'm gonna do one thing. It's gonna be elitist, but I'm calling bullshit on a couple of people here talking about the college experience and what college professors talk about. 'Cause I don't know exactly what school or maybe what level of school or what tier of college education you're talking about. But these professors that you guys claim have this academic flexibility to talking about finance and bringing up abortions and da 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 da. 8 years of college, I never saw that. Just never saw that. I don't. Maybe it's anecdotal to me. Maybe it's anecdotal to
Did
everybody
you see that in
here.
high school? Just out of
Wait,
curiosity.
say that again.
Did you see that in high school?
No, I'm talking about college.
Yeah, I know. I'm asking. Like, did you see it in high school, then just stopped in college, or did you like never see it, or?
No, I grew up in Alabama, conservative Alabama. I didn't hear conservative points and I didn't hear liberal points. We just went to
That's weird.
class and did school things. Uh, if anything, anyhow, back to my point. If you're so worried about all these extra classes that you have to take, now it's expensive, then don't go to college. Go to a trade school. Go directly into a specialty that you think will befit your ambitions that you want to excel in life. Plain and simple. Next thing is I'm going to um, agree with debate board on saying that kids that go to college are not well prepared. But then when we talk about why they are not well prepared, and we talk about property taxes and how that affects funding of school, debate board will then talk about the moral degradation of taxation and da 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 da, and we'll go for the next 2 hours talking about how lefties are bad. But we don't have time for that today. I also want to mention all these supposed cancellations are not part of the curriculum. When a speaker comes to a university, it is not because they were invited by a professor or a class to add some insight. They were invited by some extracurricular group that has their own funding after school, outside of school. And when they are invited, yes, people have the right to protest that. No, nobody has the right to protest a professor in their class doing their job. I agree. But an extracurricular program, go for it. Last but not least, I'm going to add to somebody online's point that not only is it about being a well rounded person, you're missing the point if you think college is about just taking classes and making grades. College is about sometimes having to take classes and doing things that you don't want to do, but you do them and you excel in them and you be the best at it. If you have to wake up at 7 a.m. to take some bullshit class like Star Wars music intro, whatever, what that shows to people is not the fact that you are now a Star Wars music person, genius, whatever. It shows that when you had to, when you were requested and deemed necessary for you to complete a big task like getting a degree, that waking up at 7 a.m. and showing up to the building and learning about this. I'm sorry, I don't like Star Wars, whatever movie it is, you
That's
did
fun.
it and you did it well. and you excelled. Because in real life, when you get your first job, myself as an engineer in the oil industry, I didn't know what I was doing. I knew everything about materials, composites, physics, materials, mechanics, statics. But what I did do is, after years and years of taking bullshit classes that I too at the time thought, why am I taking? Why do I have to take all these dumbass? Why did I take bowling for my PE class? And oh, wait, I have to wake up, go to work, learn shit that I don't like, do reports I don't care about, but I do it and I do it to the best of my abilities, and I get paid big bucks for it. That's why.
That's the biggest cope I've ever heard in my fucking life.
Yeah, Prime. May
No,
I like?
no, wait, no, that's not
oh,
coke.
So
Yeah,
No,
it
no, 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 no,
absolutely
no.
is cope.
Stop.
It absolutely. You don't need to do bowling
No.
PE classes to learn
No,
discipline.
no,
What the fuck are you talking about?
What
What you're
is
saying is that this waste of time taught employers that you're a good cog in the machine that'll do useless shit because it says you have to do it on a piece of paper. No, I didn't.
So
I didn't actually
rest my
graduate
case.
high school.
okay, I want to.
Hold on,
I've been,
hold
I
on.
rest my
But
case.
I've
want
been
to
in
acknowledge
college. I'm
you
going
rest
to
my
defend this point for you,
don't
Doobie, if you
need.
want.
Go for it.
I was going to say, I've been in college. I'm in my junior year of college right now. I've also
You're
been
not
working
done,
full.
and you
so I've
haven't been in the work.
That's great. I actually have been in the workforce. I've been working in the field I've been in that I'm going to school
You have
for
a
about
very
5
small
years.
worldview. Then you have a
That's
very small
great.
worldview.
That's wonderful.
You have a
that
very
you,
small
you,
No,
you
go,
were
worldview.
man enough to just
doghouse.
call me
very
out
small
by my
worldview.
name.
Well,
Instead, you want to beat around
doghouse,
the
You have
finish
a
bush.
your point.
small
But
worldview.
anyways,
Come on, let him go.
My point is one, I never said get rid of these courses. For example, if we're looking, what I'm saying is when you go into college, you should be able to have a pipeline that if this is the classes that you should take. So for example, if I'm sitting here having an English class, right, and having a generic foundational course, fine. If you came up through a poor program at your K through 12, great. Most community colleges have a developmental program that don't really even account towards anything. That's great. Leave those for those people. I'm not saying get rid of these courses completely. I'm saying that if you're going into that program saying, hey, advisor, I'm trying to be an accounting major. All right, I want to get my associate's degree first. They should be able to provide that pipeline. I unfortunately was not provided that pipeline. And what I'm saying is that what I'm saying is that when it comes to the English classes, for example, I would like to see something that is more meant for business writing. Then instead of just a generic English writing course, I would like a more business centered course that maybe teaches you about how to write a business letter, things like that. When it comes to math, maybe a business math course instead of just a generic college algebra course. Still keep those courses for those who need it. I'm not saying get rid of all of these courses. I'm saying make it a pipeline. Make it straighter for these people who are taking these courses so that it's more meaningful instead of making me take a PE class, for crying out loud, okay?
Wait, you're telling me that you don't need to learn about the Baroque period in Rome and how that came to be? Tell me you don't need that for your accounting job?
Business history would be great. I would love to learn the history of all these companies that failed and came up. I would love to learn the history of business.
And where are we in the order right now?
I was taught history from 1800 to the 1860s. Like I hadn't already learned that 3-4 times over in my normal junior high and high school program. So I would love to learn the business history while I'm in college and put my money towards it. Unfortunately, those courses were not offered at my community college. The only history classes that I had were history 1301 and 1302. Those are the only history courses I was provided. There was no other extra. Well, no, I think it was
community college.
Well, not only that, but like you can't make.
So you didn't even like go to a university.
I did go to university.
No,
afterwards,
specifically because then you would have gone. Obviously, you would see specifically those courses in a business-specific college if you're at the university.
Speaking on behalf of all technical writers, let's keep all engineers semi-literate. Thank you.
Let's go please help them.
Let's go to Desperado section of FlowTrace. Yeah.
All right, so I was going to respond to a debate board about the K through 12 problem. I stated this, I think, before you actually got into into Discord here with us, but basically Jimmy Carter created the Department of Education, and every president after Jimmy Carter basically stripped funding from the Department of Education through every administration. Even the current Biden administration is doing some of the same bits where they either are cutting funding or they're not giving any more funding to it.
I think what you mean is they're slowing down the rate of increase of federal funding that's going to K through 12, because overall federal spending in nominal amount has continued to increase. But all of that only matters. It only really matters if you are going to argue that infinite spending, right, is going to result in infinite academic achievement. And tens of billions of dollars, and 30 years later, that's not the case. Despite billions of dollars being poured into K through 12 education, we are seeing decreasing student achievement. And so there is not a direct linear correlation between funding and student achievement, and consequently it must be some other explanatory factor.
I want to make a note.
Well,
I just looked at a 4-year university.
Hold on a second.
I'm going to respond to that.
I am going to respond to that directly.
I'm going to reply anyways. So there's a history.
Only class. Oh my god! That's right.
Oh my god. Whatever. Go ahead.
As a teacher, I'll tell you right now, pay your teachers, they'll do the work. As if teachers are getting paid, and they're getting paid like regular human beings that are not working at a 7-Eleven, they will do the work for you. A teacher that gets paid $60,000-$70,000 a year, even more and whatnot, would happily do the work and make sure everything is getting taken care of. If they have all the proper means to teach children, like all the materials, everything all available to them to teach children, you will have like well-educated children.
Yeah, I'm on board with that, but when we see major, say, urban school districts like this, like the Detroit Public Schools, where they have a very low ratio of administrators to educators, I might buy further into your argument. Further, I think it's a horrible thing to say that teachers, because they're not getting paid, are not doing their job right now. Teachers are in the classroom. They are teaching their students. The amount of money that's in their paycheck is not directly correlated to how well or how poorly they're teaching. And to suggest that it is, you're really just shitting on teachers now. Okay, and frankly, they're not paid like 7-Eleven clerks. Okay, you go to any medium community size or larger school district, and you see graduated pay scales. You see teachers making really good money for working 9 months of the year with significant time off during that work year anyway. So on the whole, when you actually do a relative comparison, they're not paid that far off from accountants, right? Financial or accountants or human resources professionals or other white-collar administrative work.
Do you know exactly how much money that teachers use out of their own paychecks to get materials for children for classrooms?
Yes, and I do. My wife is a teacher, and yes,
right.
I kind
of. And she uses a lot, right?
A couple of $100 a year.
I feel sorry for her.
Right. But a couple of hundred? Man,
a couple of $100.
Your school must really fund the materials for those kids very well.
Yeah, because teachers aren't providing pencils and notebooks and books to all their students anywhere. Well, I mean, very few places, I would imagine.
Just to mention this, and maybe I'll throw shots, and that's fine. But Dan mentioned earlier that history, if I wanted to get a history lesson in business, I should have gone to a 4-year university. I just looked at 2 4-year universities, one being a major one, Texas A&M University in Texas, and no business history course at all offered there. It's only history to Western civilization since 1660, world history to 1500, world history since 1500, history of the United States, and the other university only had like the 1301, 1302 course.
It's not that important.
It is, because you're trying to throw jabs at it. It was only if I went to a 4-year university.
I'm a historian, and I don't think that's important.
You don't think business history is important?
Yeah, it's not important.
I'm also a historian, and I think it's extremely important. What do you mean?
Okay.
I've watched many documentaries. I watched many Harvard YouTube classes.
My issue with this type of a class would be that if we went into like a specific type of history for each specific type of a thing that we're going to do, well, actually, I'm going to be a pulmonary doctor, so I want to take the history of pulmonary doctors, and there's going to be 2 people in this class, and we already have a hard enough time finding decent enough professors to fill out these schedules so that people can take the classes they need now, let alone I've got some special super magical unique class that only me and the teacher are interested in.
Let's go to
it's also done by demand.
We'll go to a section of Flow Trace and Dan.
All right. Thank you. I'm really happy that I get to go now. I think that something that is important that I feel has kind of been left out of the conversation a little bit, and I don't think anybody's to blame for that. I just think it's important, is that I think that universities, or rather, I think that the positive case for universities has been kind of left out. Like, why would we want people to go to universities? Why would it be the case that people in universities are going to be the types of people that we want to exist in the world? And I think it's been left out because a lot of people who are pro-university, I think right now, are kind of responding to arguments against university. So we heard from Debate War that, you know, it seems bad that college campuses are kind of becoming dogmatic in some ways. It kind of seems bad that they're becoming maybe hyper-partisan in some ways, and that they're unwilling to hear critical thought from other people. So I think that the positive case for universities is that, A, it just seems like universities do give us a greater impact to have, or ability to have large impacts. So if we imagine like somebody who goes through the years of schooling they need to be doing to be able to become a doctor, it seems likely to me that all else held equal, the person who has gone through university to become a doctor and has gone through education to become a doctor is going to have a way bigger impact than somebody who hasn't. And broadly, I think we can generalize that to say things like that the large problems in the world, like malaria, for example, and working, for example, earning to give by getting like a high income job and then donating that money. A lot of these like types of really, really high impact work, also doing like high impact work in some weirder fields like AI research, and also more directly obvious fields like biomedical research. These types of things require a very, very high degree of education, and they are the highest impact fields, according to like 80,000 hours. So I think that the positive case, the really strong argument for university, for people to go to universities and why universities are good, is that the list of problems that are really big and that we really want to get rid of in the world are the types of problems that people who go to university are generally better suited to solve. I'm not saying, really quick, I want to append this, because whatever, I want to append this at the end. I'm not saying that only university students could do it. I'm sure there are plenty of very, very smart people who never had a chance to go to university and who maybe will even have enormous impacts on the research. What I'm saying is that our largest educational institutes, it seems really unlikely to me that they're not going to have like the best possible or the best type of impact towards educating people. And we need more highly educated people because our hardest problems in the world are about education. Now, I understand that we can have criticisms of education. I think that's absolutely fair. I think that there are problems with education. But I think broadly, the reason to have more people going to university, the reason that university is so desirable, is because high impact fields are basically universally barred, or not universally, but a lot of them have the barrier of university in the way.
Flow Trace, Dan, Rabbit.
Yeah, I just think to sort of piggyback off that, colleges can absolutely enhance you as a person, and that's generally a good thing. A great way of going out and meeting people and having experiences is going to college. In fact, I know a lot of people who regret treating their university experience like a trade school, where they just blasted through it as fast as possible to get into the work sector. People often don't do things that are good for them, and if we can use college as an avenue to push people in directions that are good for them, I'm 100% for that. I think Section really hit the nail on the head. It's not that you necessarily need college to be a well-rounded person, but you can become a well-rounded person via college. And if we can make people more well-rounded by having colleges have certain requirements on general classes, then that's 100% something we should be doing. It's the same reason why we try and work generally, or one of the big reasons why our actual schools aren't based on being the most practical in the world. The reason why we have 1,000,001 classes, but still not classes on like how to do taxes, is because it's not just about sort of how you can practically integrate, how you can like practically interact with society. It's also about making you a well-rounded person, and we can balance both of those things. The answer is to add a class where you learn about taxes, not to get rid of things about like Baroque history. I guess then it seems like the bigger discussion that we're sort of having is about sort of uncomfort, and I do think Section again to sort of hit the nail on the head. It's not about something that's uncomfortable. It's about something has value, and that is where the real disagreement lies. If it does have value, everyone here is okay with some level of discomfort. The problem is that we disagree on the value. Conservatives don't want CRT, not because they're uncomfortable with it, but because they think that it's wrong. And liberals don't want systemic racism to necessarily be up for debate because they don't think that having that debate has any value. So what we really need to be clashing over is our disagreement on value. And I think that there's sort of a bridge that can be built here. I think so long as there's a big chunk of this country that are red-blooded conservatives, there is value in debating those conservative values, because that's what people are engaging with in their daily life on the ground. Okay, you can't just close your eyes and cut yourself and pretend like the people that disagree with you don't exist, because that's not going to make them go away. And if we want to ideally reach some sort of understanding and move people to our side, then we need to be meeting them where they are, not sort of chastising them for not agreeing with us in the first place. But I think equally, when the objective fact of the matter seems to suggest that, for example, like older concepts in gender and sex are wrong, then there is value in teaching that. Classes should let disagreements be had, but classes should not be neutral on matters of fact. And at a certain point, a professor should say, for example, redlining was real and impoverished black people. I think that conservatives get away way too much with the fact that they also don't want things that they don't like to be debated in the classroom, and would probably and have historically pushed for their own sort of ideological whitewashing. It's important that we have both sides, but it's also important we come down on the letter of sort of the fact of the matter, whether that is a left or a right-leaning thing. And I guess the final thing, I don't think we're going to get to this debate because we disagree about the problem sort of existing in the first place, but it's kind of what Debate War is getting at, is I'd love to hear if anyone has any ideas about how to fix this, because it feels like the big reason colleges are like this is because they are rewarded for this behavior by students. So long as students are choosing where to go to college for, and students seem to generally have a desire for colleges to be this way, I really have zero idea how we fix that problem. It's easy to say, colleges, why aren't you how we on this Twitch panel prefer? But when the students who are given the colleges the vast amount of their money that these colleges run off of, I don't know, it feels a little disingenuous to sort of sit here on our high horses when the reality on the ground is that colleges are being rewarded for this behavior.
I want to tackle that.
Fuck Doobie.
Fair enough.
I have to hop off here, so thank everybody, and thank you, Prime.
Thank you so much. Flow Trace. Yeah, I want to tackle that problem a little later. Because I think that's actually interesting. I want to make sure that other people online can get their voice in first. So let's go to Dan, Rabid, and then Debate Board and Doghouse.
Thanks.
Yeah, I do get some concerns about that being mentioned, Flow Trace, and like the uses of biases in classrooms do exist, and I do think many of the people who work at the universities, as including the professors and TAs, are open to explain what their bias is first before they are teaching. Like in my experience, I had both very imperialist, like American professors, to open socialists, and when they specifically talk about the subjects, they don't they do explain first that they're biased, but they don't disallow people to at least contrarily try to give a different perspective when arguing their arguments in like papers and whatnot, because that's what's usually needed when speaking to those who are coming from at least my background in history. It's those exist, and definitely you say so. And a lot of these classes do even speak about debating if what is the right way for teaching subjects. Like even my university has like a class specifically debating how to teach history as a subject course, because obviously a lot of people wanted to understand at least the difference between between biases and not. And I found it very useful. I found it useful, even myself who took the class. And give to the point to even Dog's House show on his issues on specifically not having professors teach like corporate history. The issue specifically with that is that you need to have a specific teacher that has the specialty in that field that teaches that area, and also the interest of many students in the department, or at least in that program, to wanting to take a class like that in order to start at first. Because typically I haven't seen such classes being very popular, and then professors who end up doing these courses are not exactly very well thought to wanting to do these again, because the department not exactly let him do it, because obviously in the past he hasn't shown to be successful. They still have to earn money to keep their department running, of course. And get to the point of Debate Board talking about seeing these universities and speaking to what I said earlier, I don't see much of a difference with these universities changing to more of a liberal, like leftist bent, as said to what he has mentioned. If I ask my honest opinion, I probably would say just goes around pretty much the same thing. The only thing they matter when you're talking about this is no bigotry. If the matter is to your belief that trans women are not women, and in trying to causing discomfort for him or her or whatnot to the classroom, that's just simply to bigotry, and usually will cause much issue to class, and the structure is taught. If this is to use this is bias, they can't like, I will never say him or they. don't be in that college. There's like many other universities, specifically with your biased bet if you want to go to it. If you mention you live in Michigan, go to Hope University. They're a very rigorous Christian university that has a very conservative view on viewing like education and whatnot. Just go there. If you really seriously have an issue of public schools, public universities just wanting to be more leftist or whatnot. The more of the issue I've just seen is just that people are really upset, and those who are in the conservative bet, if they just cannot be saying bigotry or harmful things or not. That's usually a matter for me, and that in my view on education and so far in my profession.